In this video, we're going to take a look at the structure of a myofibril. And so a myofibril is this linear component that you can see that's filling the skeletal muscle cell. And you probably know that muscle is protein. And so it shouldn't be any surprise that these myofibrils, what they are protein filaments made out of a number of different types of protein. But the first thing that I would like to point out in this picture is notice how the myofibril seems to be segmented. So they're showing me that this myofibril has these repeating parts to it. That segment is known as a sarcomere, and what it is a repeating pattern of these protein filaments that I'm referring to. Okay, and so the myofibril is made up of a certain pattern or organization of protein filaments called a sarcomere. And on top of that, when I look at the whole cell, what I'm noticing is that within this cell, all of the sarcomeres of all of the myofibrils are aligning. And because of that, that's what's going to create this bold banding pattern that you can see on the outside of the cell that's known as striation. So it's because the sarcomeres of all of the myofibrils align that create the striation. Here's a photograph of skeletal muscle under the microscope, and I just want to show you what I'm talking about. That banded or striped appearance, those dark bands are what are called A bands, and the light bands are known as I bands. Basically what you have here is you have alternating dark and light stripes, the dark stripe being called the A band and the light stripe being called the I band. So let's take a closer look at the myofibril. We're going to pull this myofibril out and put it on its own screen. Taking a closer look at one myofibril. So this is a subcellular component. This is one of those protein filaments. This is the pattern of protein that's known as a sarcomere. So a sarcomere, recall, is a particular arrangement or a pattern of protein. There are two main types of protein that make up the sarcomere. One type is called a thin filament, and the thin filaments are shaded blue in this picture. So this is a thin filament. I can see that the thin filaments start at the side of the sarcomere. So this is the boundary, the border between one sarcomere and the next. And the thin filament is attached to that border, and it projects into the sarcomere. Okay, so the thin filaments start at the side of the sarcomere and they project towards the center of the sarcomere. The other type of filament is known as a thick filament, and the thick filaments are color-coded red in this picture. So notice the thick filaments are spanning the distance of the center of the sarcomere. So these are the thick filaments. They don't take up the whole sarcomere, but they're centered in the sarcomere. Notice how the thick and the thin filaments partially overlap, and also notice how the thick filaments are anchored in place right in the middle of the sarcomere by this is a band of protein. So as a summary, the structure of a sarcomere is thin filaments coming in from the sides of the sarcomere and projecting partially overlapping with the thick, and then the thick filaments run right down the center of the sarcomere and they're anchored in place in the middle of the sarcomere.